This is Matt for Boxing Social in association with William Hill and Empire Fight Store. I'm delighted as always to be joined by Showtime Shawn Porter. Shawn, I appreciate you giving us some of your time. Last time we did an interview, you dragged me on camera without me wanting to go on it. It went down well. I enjoyed it. Appreciate you.
People enjoyed it too.
Look, last time we spoke, I asked you on Errol Spence, Terence Crawford, and you said, look, I ain't answering anything on that until we get the fight signed, sealed, delivered. I'm not going to ask you. I pressed you. You still said no.
I still don't want to talk about it.
Come on. You've got it now a little bit. Now it's here. How excited are you for the matchup anyway? It's going to be a couple of weeks. Las Vegas is going to be absolutely buzzing for it. You're going to be there, I assume. How excited are you for this fight?
Probably just as excited as I was to fight both those guys. I mean, there's not very many boxing matches that I consider to be a Super Bowl. This is certainly a Super Bowl, and I'm hoping that this is the same two teams coming right back again next year for the Super Bowl again. You know, I think that this fight is worthy of everything that comes with boxing. In terms of the star-studded event with all the stars in the seats. Pay-per-view should do crazy numbers. And I think that both those guys should be electric with their interests, and then they should be electric once that fight starts, man. I can't see one letdown in this fight. It's impossible. This is just the fight of the century to me.
Now, you've obviously got experience with both guys, so you're more than qualified to answer this question. Having shared the ring, where do you see the advantages in this fight for both guys? Errol Spence, obviously king of the division now. Well, I say king of the division. He's been in that division his whole career. You've seen Terence Crawford go up the weight classes. He won 5 year, and he's got them accomplishments. Yeah. Where do you see the advantages coming into this fight?
The first thing that came to mind is Errol Spence's work rate. I think that he has obviously a big presence in the ring, and when he uses that presence and adds to it by working, stand in your face, double jabs in the straight left, and just continuing to try to work and apply intelligent pressure. To me, that's where he has a huge advantage in this fight, if you want to call it an advantage. The other side of that is Terence has the ability to kind of this range and distance for Terence Crawford is almost invisible. It's like you know where it is, and then instantly it's gone. He can take it from you. He can make it look like it's there, and then he can pull it away from you that quickly. You know, so Terence has the ability, I think, to work from the outside, and then move those subtle movements that he makes. And I think that he's not a predictable fighter, and I think that that's the other, if you want to call it, advantage or strong side for both those guys. I think I like that better because you talk about advantages, there aren't any advantages in this fight. I think people are trying to make some, but there really aren't any.
How pleasing is it in boxing? I think this year more than most years, we're actually starting to see these fights where the guys are putting it on the line. We were there in Vegas for Gervonta Tank Davis versus Ryan Garcia. We've seen the likes of Devin Haney, Lomachenko, and we're seeing, hopefully, we're not going to talk about fights that aren't yet made at the end of this year in the likes of Saudi, but we'll hopefully have a great year for boxing. How pleasing is it we're sort of coming back into that era now where we are seeing the risks getting taken and guys aren't as afraid to hold on to that and now dive into it?
I tell you what, man, timing is everything. And I think that it just took some time for a lot of fighters to be put in the same position. I mean, you take a look at my career, for instance, you say, well, Shawn fought everybody. Well, I fought a Devin Alexander who was coming back from a defeat from Timothy Bradley. I think he won 2 fights in between that and then getting in the ring with me. But he really wasn't who he was before Timothy Bradley when we fought. You look at me fighting Andre Berto. Andre Berto, I fought Andre, I think it was 2017 or 2018, 2017 when we fought. He wasn't the same Andre Berto that turned pro in 04 and went on to do the things he did between 04 and when he fought me. I mean, he just wasn't the same fighter. And so now we're looking at a lot of guys who are all young, who are all reaching their pinnacle of their careers. And it's just about the timing. I don't think that the timing has been as perfect as it is becoming to be now in in this year, maybe last year, and then the definitely definitely the next decade to come at the least.
Do you think this is the type of fight where we see it run back again and maybe we get a trilogy, at least a rematch out of it, depending on how it goes, obviously, as long as something dramatic doesn't maybe happen like the first round? Is this something we can see again?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of realistic components to this fight. Both guys can end this fight in the first round. Something I don't think that we'll see, but it could happen. I think if there's a crazy knockout in this fight at between rounds 1 and maybe, I don't know, between rounds 1 and maybe 10, I think then there's no reason to see a rematch, especially if we get a knockout between 1 and 5. There's really no need for a rematch. But if this fight goes the distance, we get a draw, we're probably looking at a fight that could end in a draw. If we don't get a draw, we're looking at an unbelievable fight that deserves an instant replay.
100%. Off the back of that, more recently, we've seen Canelo Alvarez commit his next 3 fights to the PBC. We're here until the end of next September, I believe. Jermell Charlo, not Jermell Charlo, like I think everyone was expecting, but Jermell Charlo, 168 pounds. This is I feel like the PBC, they sort of go about their business in a way where things just sort of happen. You don't normally see a lot like all over social media. You see a little bit to hype, but things just sort of happen. Mm-hmm. Talk about that fight getting made, Canelo and Jermell at 168 pounds, what you expect, and also the way PBC have sort of been conducting their business and now producing these big fights, continuously producing these big fights.
That wasn't the fight we expected. Obviously, you see Canelo sign with PBC, and you're thinking that the bigger Charlo is going to be the one to get in the ring. Even though that wasn't what I expected, I did expect Jermell Charlo to vacate his titles and move up. I didn't expect him to move up to 68, but I did not see this fight with Tim Tszyu happening. Last time I was over there, I said, hey, don't expect to have that fight. I mean, you can chime in with them and they'll tell you, like, I knew that he would not be fighting Tim Tszyu, at the least, not immediately. If he moves up to 68, I don't see him coming back down to 54. But if he has the opportunity to come back to 54 and get all his belts back, I could see him doing that. When you move forward and you see the 54 Jermell Charlo getting in the ring with Canelo, once you move past the size, because I think that's where everyone thinks it is kind of a point blank answer that Canelo is going to win this fight. But once you move past the weight situation, because let's look at the facts, we all lose weight to get to our weight class, which means Charlo's losing weight to get to 54. He's not a natural 154-pound fighter. He's a fighter that fights at 154 pounds. He's probably more of a natural 160, if not a natural 168. So let's kind of put that out there on the record that this is an even fight. But when you look at experience, you look at the fact that Canelo has been multidimensional throughout his career, for the sake of words. You look at the fact that he has the work rate, Canelo, that is. We're looking at a right hand from Jermell Charlo, and if that right hand doesn't land between rounds 1 and probably round 8, it probably won't land at all. And Canelo will win this fight. I don't see Canelo losing to Jermell Charlo.
Even though obviously you don't see him losing, it's a big fight. The build-up should be interesting. We know Jermell's quite a vocal guy. Canelo, unless he's really antagonized, like you see a Caleb Plant get in his face, he rarely sort of loses his cool unless he's got that guy who's gonna maybe poke the bear a little bit. Jermell may well do that. Yeah. Are you surprised we weren't talking about a Canelo Benavidez fight right away?
No. And I'm on record for saying I don't think he's gonna fight Benavidez.
Not at all in these 3 fights.
I don't think he's gonna fight Benavidez, but we'll see what happens. I think that Canelo's looking at some other fights that aren't as tough. I mean, let's be honest. This is Jason. And that is Benavidez getting in the ring with the boogeyman and Canelo Alvarez, you know. So you got two titans, you got two monsters who get in the ring, but usually one monster doesn't want another monster in the ring. So, you know, I don't think Canelo wants to get in the ring with Benavidez.
So if you're Canelo, let's just say he beats Jermell Charlo, which for me I think it's a terrific fight, a very interesting one to call, even with the weight difference and him moving up. What does Canelo do after? Who are the two fights? Jermall?
I mean, I think even that makes sense. I think that makes sense. Jermell, then Jamal, and then we'll see what happens. I do believe that PBC is going to do the best they can to kind of to get him to move into the direction of fighting Benavidez. I mean, let's be honest. We're looking at Errol Spence and Terence Crawford. That's the biggest fight to be made in boxing. I truly do believe that the second biggest fight to be made in boxing could well be Canelo versus Benavidez. I think the only thing is Benavidez needs to find some ways to increase his profile before that fight happens. You know, I think that he has a great profile within the sport of boxing, but he does not. I don't truly believe that Benavidez has a profile outside of the boxing world that yeah, that is, you know, massive. Like I like to see him have a profile like Ryan Garcia before he gets in the ring with Canelo Alvarez, you know. I think that's a tough feat for him, but I think he can get close to that, you know.
There was talks of, I believe, David Morrell and Benavidez fight. You like that fight?
I like that fight. I think that Benavidez is too much for Morrell at this point. And don't get me wrong, I would love to see Canelo Alvarez versus David Benavidez. I think that it's a highlight career fight for both guys. I just think that seeing where Canelo is at this point in his career, I think someone young and big like Benavidez is not what Canelo wants at this point.
If that fight did get made, do you see that as a 50-50 fight at this point in Canelo's career? Or do you sway slightly towards the young guy coming through who wants to prove his point?
Yeah, you do the math. I truly think it's 55-45 for Benavidez. Could very well be 60-40 for Benavidez. But considering everything in that fight, how that fight could truly play out, 55-45 Benavidez.
Want to move on to the heavyweights, just on fights that's nearly made by all accounts. Apparently, Dillian Whyte has signed his end of the contract for Anthony Joshua. Do you think that's a good move for Anthony Joshua, getting one more fight in before a Deontay Wilder, allegedly, if that happens? Because let's talk about what's actually happening. But Dillian Whyte apparently has signed his end. Do you think that's a wise move? He's obviously training with Derek James now, the likes of Errol Spence, etc. Is that a wise move, one more fight?
Yes, definitely. You as many fights as you can get before you get in the ring with, you know, the one of the hardest punchers ever. Is always the best thing to do. And I think you choose an opponent like Dillian Whyte because you don't see much risk or threat right there. You get an opportunity to work live in fight situation with a new coach again. And so yeah, I mean, I think that it's a no-brainer. He needs one, if not two more fights before he gets to the ring with Deontay Wilder. Wilder also needs just as many fights. He needs another one, if not two fights.
You mentioned obviously Deontay there. We see him come out and do the video saying, "Look, Andy Ruiz, let's make this fight happen." This has been going on as well since the last time we spoke. Do you know, when you look at the heavyweight division? I spoke to Dave Caldwell over here, and he says, "I'm getting sick of it. Like all the guys in the lower weight classes seems to be the ones who are making it happen. Let's throw the attention on them." Are you at that point now where it's like, if it happens kind of thing?
I don't. I've always been like that about the sport of boxing. I mean, you're talking to someone who did it. I've seen fights right there come and go. I've seen text messages where, hey, this is who we're looking at. I've seen emails, and then it all just kind of dissipates. Business moves in another direction. Whatever the case may be, fighters aren't ready. Fighters get injured. There's so many possibilities that come between a fight getting made and people saying this fight has been signed, and then what actually happens, So I've always lived that way, Hey, I'll talk about it once it's happening, as you have experienced with me.
I wanted to get your opinion. Adrien Broner, he obviously came back and had a good victory. Looked good, came back. There was a video released of him not looking in the best of conditions. Someone had done an interview with him. I'm not quite sure why that got ever published, but is that yeah? Have you? I know you two, even though you had that fight, you sort of always embrace each other and shown love to each other. Have you reached out to? You heard anything from him at all?
We haven't spoken much in a number of months now, but I do try to keep in touch with him. Bottom line is it just I think that he's it's two things. I think number one, he's shown us that he's been in a bad place. And when you've seen that someone's in a bad place, when you see them intoxicated, you think it's because of the bad place. But let's be honest, we don't know when that interview took place. We don't know when he got the call to do the interview. He may have been partying and just said, "Yeah, I'll come over and do it." Nevertheless, should never have been done. Beyond that, should never have been posted. I think that people should want a better product before they put it out. And I thought that was distasteful, and I didn't like it.
Yeah, well, obviously, I think we speak for everyone. We say we want to see Adrien back in full health. Like I said, we don't know when it was done, but he's back in the ring. He looks in good shape. We'd be interested to see what he does next. Look, Shawn, obviously the Porterway podcast seems to be doing well. What have you got coming up? Give it a little plug. What have you got coming up? Any guests you got coming on? We know you're active. Every fight week I'm out in America. You're there.
Man.
You're stood next to my camera interviewing about 6 people.
What's going on? I just love doing it, man. I've always loved interviewing. I've always loved doing interviews, the whole nine. So definitely love taking the camera around and doing what I gotta do. I definitely want to plug my Patreon. It's Patreon. We TPWP. If you want to sign up for the Patreon, that's where we have all of our exclusive content. So there's some things that aren't on the podcast yet that will be eventually put on the podcast. Those things are on the Patreon right now, and I got a lot of exclusive stuff coming to the Patreon. I'm going to be doing interviews with actors, comedians, NBA players, NFL players, and I'm not talking about C and D level. I'm talking about A and B level entertainers who are going to speak directly to what they think is going to happen with Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. And then of course move beyond that, and I'll have that live in time on our Patreon. So definitely want to plug that. But we bring a new episode every week to the Patreon or to the podcast, the Porterway Podcast on YouTube and everything out there, man, and just getting bigger and better. Kevin Hart's coming to town this week, and so we'll be hanging out with Kevin Hart, and that footage will be on the Patreon. You know what I mean? We're going down to Dallas in like 2 weeks, and we'll be hanging out with NFL, NBA, the elites, and all of that content will be on the Patreon. It'll come to the podcast eventually, but you guys want to see that when it happens.
Well, what we'll do is, if you can send me a link, we'll put it in the link in this description. So you know where to find him, Shawn Porter, Kevin Hart, all these A-listers that are flying onto his podcast. Click the link, and there we go. Look, Shawn, you look like someone who's quite content with retired life. We see a lot of boxers wanting to come back, but you seem quite happy that you're on the other side of the ring now.
I am, man. I'm working on my suit line, Shawn Porter Suits and Services. Again, that content is on the Patreon as well. We'll be launching that the week of Spence versus Crawford. I got too many big things going on, things I've been looking forward to doing, and no disrespect to boxing, but I put a lot of things on hold, and so I retired with purpose, and I'm living in my purpose, and I'm enjoying every bit of it.
Well, look, Shawn, I appreciate you giving me some of your time and responding to the emails and obviously getting this thing done at the other side of the world. So much respect for that. And hopefully we can catch up. Errol Spence, Terence Crawford fight week. I'll be in Vegas.
I'll see you soon, sir.
Appreciate it.
Anytime.